What's up? This is E.J. Stewart.
What if I dropped 40 days, 40 nights?
One, you can't do it.
All you are your words. If there's anything you learned about me, I'm going to keep it 100 with you.
Every morning, every night, for 40 days.
Going to be a long 40 days this year.
My skill shot will hold for your city for 40 days, 40 nights.
Rest in peace to all my ops.
For 40 days. If I can do that, then everything will be okay.
You're the guy who can't finish a sandwich. You think you can go 40 days? This isn't normal!
Oh, you're wrong, brother. I'm gonna go the distance.
Let's go!
Let's go is right. What's up? This is E.J. Stewart. Welcome to 40 Days and 40 Nights. We are on day number 10. We are wrapping up week number 2 of 40 Days and 40 Nights. And we got a great show for you today. Of course, we are just a few days away from Championship Sunday. Yes, right. 2 teams will be going to the Super Bowl after we see the AFC and NFC title game. We'll do a full preview, full breakdown. I'll give you my picks for this upcoming Sunday. You got the Broncos hosting the Patriots without their starting quarterback in Bo Nix. And then you got the Rams traveling to Seattle to take on the Seattle Seahawks. So we'll break down those games. We also got some commentary from LeBron James, who spoke after last night's game against the Clippers about this report from ESPN that detailed a bunch of apparent friction from Jeanie Buss's side regarding her relationship with LeBron James. LeBron James spoke quite at length a little bit about this report and the questions around it, so you'll hear from the King a little bit later in the show. Also, a new name has been entered into the fray when it comes to coaches potentially taking over the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it's one that I certainly didn't expect to hear. And it is one that also impacts me very greatly. So that should be very fun as well. So we got a lot to do in this show, man. This should be a really good one. Again, this is EJ Stewart. You're watching 40 Days of 40 Nights. Of course, you can catch all of these shows on the New Generation Podcast Network. You can catch us on, obviously, New Generation Media is the YouTube channel, which is where we're streaming live. Hello to the folks on YouTube. You can also catch us, obviously, on X, EJ_Stewart. We're streaming live there as well. Hello to the people on X. And we just started streaming live on Instagram. So people on IG Live, hello, this is EJ Stewart. This should be, again, a fun one. Some really interesting, juicy stuff we got going on. So let's begin talking about Championship Sunday. And it should be an interesting Championship Sunday. Again, like I've said before, I don't feel like these are teams that are perfect. I don't think we're going to be thinking about these teams and saying these are four of the greatest teams of all time. But I think they're a reflection in many ways of the season. I think the season has been about parity. I think this NFL season has been about the changing of the guard. And that's what I think you're seeing in both of these matchups. So first you got obviously the NFC title game where you get the Niners who have kind of run the NFC West for most of this generation. They're out of this playoffs. And you got 2 teams, the Rams, who still kind of represent a little bit the old guard because you still got McVay and Stafford, 2 guys that have been highly successful since they've come together in LA. And then you got Seattle, who's really new to the fray with this iteration of the Seahawks, where you got Mike McDonald, who's their new head coach, who in just his second year has really turned around the program. You have Sam Darnold coming over in free agency. He has been obviously the quarterback that a lot of people feel like can't get it done and will not come up big in these kind of moments. He's got a golden opportunity to go to his first Super Bowl. Obviously, Kenneth Walker, Jackson Smith and Jigba. A lot of new figures in this matchup. You go over to the other side. You go to the AFC. Same deal. Sean Payton, after many years in New Orleans, just his 3rd year now in Denver. He has them on the precipice of going to the Super Bowl. He's doing it with a defense that is young and aggressive and physical and fast. And they've made some phenomenal plays already in these playoffs. Obviously, McMillan pick and some of the plays they made to harass and force Josh Allen into 4 turnovers. And he's going to be doing it not even with the guy we expected. Because, Bo Nix was a second-year player who, again, another guy that was kind of doubted by some coming out of the draft. He was the last first-round pick of all those first-round picks of quarterbacks when you talk about Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Drake May, who we're talking about in a second, and obviously Michael Penix and J.J. McCarthy. He was the last guy, though he was still a first-round pick. He successfully led his team to the AFC title game And if it all wasn't for a botched kneel down, he would be playing in this game. But he broke his ankle at the very end of the game against the Buffalo Bills. So now you got Jarrett Stidham, who, if you know how Jarrett Stidham is going to play this week, then you should be Nostradamus. You're Nostradamus. You should probably play the lottery, because I don't think anyone has really any clue what to expect from Jarrett Stidham. I don't think anyone's expecting a 400-yard, masterclass. But is he going to play good? Is he going to be hot garbage? I think we're all kind of going to wait and see to see how this is going to work. For the Patriots standpoint, it's ironic he actually was there, I think, for a little bit. But how are they preparing for this guy? This guy has not started a game in many years in terms of playing like a real, a game of real stakes. So that is also a whole different situation. And then, of course, again, the Patriots, then you got Mike Vrabel year 1, Drake May year 2, a team that, again, has turned it around really fast. And all these teams, I said, have not necessarily played perfect games throughout these playoffs. Except for the Seahawks, they were quite dominant in their first game. They haven't played perfect games besides the Seahawks in this postseason. They haven't really been perfect or, even like steady and even for much of the season. They've had ups and downs and peaks and valleys, despite their gaudy records, because these two teams do have pretty good records. And I think, again, it's a reflection of the NFL season. You're not going to see a team that's going to resemble the 93 Cowboys or the 94 49ers or the 2002 Patriots, or 2003 Patriots rather. Like they don't exist. Those teams aren't in this postseason, but it doesn't mean we're not going to have some awesome championship games on Sunday. So let's actually begin over on I'm going to start on the AFC side here, and we're going to break down this game here. So you got Patriots going to Denver to take on the Denver Broncos. Patriots obviously won last week in a game where it kind of went how I said it would go. I feared that it would essentially be another scrimmage for Drake May. I felt like the game against the Chargers was essentially a scrimmage because he was allowed to make a ton of mistakes, and it didn't really matter because the other team had no chance to move the football with any kind of consistency at all. And that's basically what happened again, is he faced another team whose quarterback was completely overwhelmed and not in position to move the ball with any kind of consistency. He also was turning the ball over tremendously deep in their own territory, which gave them some short fields. So for Drake May, it's become really it's very rare for a young quarterback who's going through his first postseason to have these mulligans. But that's essentially what he's getting. I remember watching Peyton Manning struggle early on in his career in the playoffs. I remember seeing other young quarterbacks who in their first few go-arounds in the postseason, obviously Lamar Jackson is still having trouble, but he had trouble his first go-around. We've seen Josh Allen, he lost his first playoff game. We've seen tons of young quarterbacks, young stars, who get in their first playoffs and they realize, speed's a little faster. Teams are a little more aggressive. Teams have scouted me way better. And it just is a slog. And sometimes it takes a couple of playoff appearances before you kind of figure out the speed of the game and you're ready to play at that kind of level. And for Drake May, he has been allowed to go through this experience without taking the loss. That's what's been so great for him, is that he's been able to go through this experience of making mistakes, of learning how the speed of the game is different, learning how much better these teams are than you kind of play on a week-to-week basis. Again, you're not playing a random game against the Jets or a random game against the Dolphins or a random game against the Saints. Patriots beat up on a pretty easy schedule, and we knew the competition was going to step up once they faced teams in the playoffs, but the teams that they faced had not given them much resistance because the other teams' opposing offenses were totally ill-equipped to be successful in the postseason. So now Drake May, ironically, comes into yet another game that could also kind of be a scrimmage. I mean, again, do you have an idea how good Jarrett Stidham is? Do you have any idea how good he's going to be able to move this offense? Because, again, we've watched the Denver Broncos offense all season, and it is extremely boom or bust. They had a really explosive first half last week where they were really good, and then they got completely shut out in the second half for most of the second half until the very end when they finally get the field goal to at least send it to overtime. They're definitely suspect when it comes to their consistency and their efficiency. They've been able to have big comebacks, they've been able to have big moments, but I would not describe the Denver Broncos offense as an efficient offense on the Bo Nix. Do they become more efficient under Jarrett Stidham? Maybe they don't have the explosive plays, but maybe they move the ball more consistently. Maybe they're not having as many turnovers. Again, your guess is as good as mine. I would assume Jarrett Stidham is the backup for a reason. So I'm going to assume that there's going to be some fall off from Bo Nix. Even if you're not the biggest Bo Nix fan, I think Bo Nix is pretty good. I don't think he's, I know Sean Payton has called him a future MVP. I don't see him as an MVP caliber guy, but I think he's a borderline Pro Bowl guy. I think he's a guy that could definitely win you a lot of games. He's shown that already. I think he deserves that respect. But do I look at this and say, okay, the Patriots are going to be in a position where they might have to get in a track meet, or that again, Drake May is going to be in a position where he's going to have to play 10 times better than he had in the last 2 games, which is typically what I would say if this was a normal game. If Bo Nix was playing, I'd say I think this is where the rubber meets the road, where Drake May cannot have the fumbles he's had. He had a pick in that game as well. Those against the Texans, he can't play like that if they're going to beat the Broncos. He might be able to play that way and beat the Broncos and Jarrett Stidham out there. That is a reality. I mean, he's played, and we can't even go to he's playing a great defense. He's already played 2 great defenses. The Chargers are a great defense. Jesse Minter just got hired as a head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, in part because of the defense he built in LA. And then the Texans are, in my opinion, the best defense in the NFL. And again, they kind of did a good job against them. They did a good job against Patriots offense. But it didn't actually matter, again, because those teams had no support offensively. So I assume that there'll be a drop-off offensively. I would assume this will be a kind of sloppy-ish, a sloppy-ish, a low-scoring kind of game. The way I see this is I'm riding with the Patriots because I think they do have the better quarterback. And I think Mike Vrabel and that defensive staff being able to, while you don't have a bunch of tape on this season's Jarrett Stidham or who he is right now, I expect Sean Payton to coach a very conservative game. Now, Sean Payton is a lot of things, and he kind of bothers me in terms of just like his attitude sometimes and his arrogance. He is a very good head coach, or borderline great. I think maybe you could say he's a great head coach. He's won a ton of games, obviously, throughout his career. And he knows, I think, that the Patriots are going to assume he's going to play extremely conservative. So could you see some trick plays? Could you see a couple of things that we haven't seen, some wrinkles in their offense? I think you probably will. I think for the Patriots, it's going to be key that they limit those huge explosives. I think Sean Payton's going to say, I'm going to try to shrink this game. I'm going to try to limit mistakes that could be made in this game, because he probably feels like my defense will be able to get Drake May to make some mistakes. So as long as we don't make mistakes, we can stay in this game. The Texans were able to stay in that game because the Patriots for a long time, simply because Drake May kept making mistakes, and their offense overall wasn't moving the ball that great. The Chargers were able to stay in that game for a long time against the Patriots because the Patriots were making mistakes. So I think Sean Payton is going to watch the film of those games and say, okay, if we can just protect the quarterback, which the Chargers can do, and then if we can get the quarterback to not make the catastrophic errors like C.J. Stroud was making, let's get him some easy passes, let's rely on R.J. Harvey to run game, let's get some small stuff. And then the difference in the game being we're going to take the shots when maybe they're least expecting. Again, trick plays maybe when they're least expecting. I would expect some Sean Payton hijinks in this one. Sean Payton is a guy who likes to have that kind of fun offensively. He's a guy who likes to lean on that kind of stuff. If Sean Payton was smart, which I know he is, I would expect him to try to see, like, let's see if we can get the Patriots sleeping on an onside kick, on a fake punt, on a flea flicker. The flea flickers that I've seen both in the NFL playoffs and the college football playoff have all been disastrous. I think we should ban all flea flickers for the rest of the season because no one seems to execute it correctly. But I think you'll see one of those kind of plays, and it's going to be up for the Patriots that they can't allow one of those plays to be the difference. And then special teams as well. I mentioned like an onside kick, but also punt return, kick return. Could you see a trick play on punt return, kick return? Again, these are all things I think if I'm the Patriots, I'm having my antennas up real high on. Because I think we just line up and we just play football, considering that they have Jarrett Stidham and we have a finalist for MVP. I know he's been struggling a little bit. I think they should win the game. And I think that's probably what Mike Vrabel feels as well. So I think that's going to be a major key. If I was the Denver Broncos, like I said, I think you are going to have to lean on some trick plays, some interesting stuff. You're going to have to run the ball extremely well, and that's going to be important in this game. Running the football is going to be important for both teams. I think especially for the Patriots as well. I mentioned last week that I thought the difference in slowing down the Texans would be their ability to run the football. And Ramondre Stevenson, ironically, actually was, I thought, more effective than Trayvon Henderson. I know I mentioned that I thought Trayvon Henderson would be the X factor. I thought he maybe would be able to pop a big one, and that would be a difference in the game. And actually was Ramondre Stevenson who ran the ball much better. He had 16 carries for 70 yards. It wasn't like they ran all over the Houston Texans, and the Texans are a great defense. It's not easy to run on them. But if you have any shot to beat them in terms of moving the ball offensively, I think you're going to have to run the ball. 105 yards last week definitely did the job. It's only 3.3 yards per carry, but they had to have that level of consistency. I think if you're the Patriots this week, I think it's the same thing, because you're playing another ferocious pass rush, and you know the Denver Broncos are going to try to bring pressure. Sometimes with blitzes, sometimes with just 4, and you're going to have to be able to run the football with some consistency. I do not want to see Drake May, especially because of how loose he's been with the ball, where he's fumbling the ball, guys are getting hands on him. I need to slow down that pass rush way more than I did last week. Now, listen, I thought Will Campbell had a disastrous day against Will Anderson. I mean, he is Will Anderson, so maybe it's like most guys are going to have disastrous days, but I was actually quite surprised at just how ill-equipped he was at left tackle in that game. Is he any better this week against Nick Bonito? Like, Nick Bonito's also great. If I'm the Patriots and I'm Josh McDaniels, I'm probably doing a lot more to send over help. I thought they kind of left Will Anderson on an island with Will Campbell, and they kind of say, hey, man, you're a top pick. You're going against the top pick. Go do your job. And I'm like, no, not against this guy. I don't care how high you drafted Campbell, how well thought of you think he is. And when you get to the playoffs and you have these game record type pass rushers, it is not a smart strategy to say we're going to just put that guy on an island and see if he can try his best. I think the Patriots got away with a lot of stuff. They've been getting away with a lot of stuff all postseason. I think this is going to be a closer game than the first 2 games they played, because I think Sean Payton, now watching the Patriots 2 weeks of film and watching how they played the playoffs, I think he has a good sense of what they expect from this team. I think Drake May's going to make a couple more mistakes again. I don't think it's going to be a clean game for him. But I do think the Broncos are going to have trouble offensively. They have not consistently still been able to run the ball. And Jarrett Stidham is not one of the worst backup quarterbacks in the NFL. There's not Tim Boyle going out there playing. But I don't feel super confident that this is going to be a huge Jarrett Stidham game. I don't see happening. So I'm gonna lean Patriots here. I know the Patriots right now, I believe they are a 3-point favorite on the road. I'm going to pick Patriots. I'm gonna lay the 3. I'm gonna say this is gonna be like a 23-17 game. That's the vibe I get. Like a 23-17. I think it's a 1-score game, but I don't think it's a field goal. I think it's probably a touchdown. And I'm riding with the Patriots on the road. They go to the Super Bowl, in my opinion, because I think that at the end of the day, if their quarterback is healthy, they also have a very good defense that is playing with a lot of confidence. And considering they're not going to be facing the backup quarterback, I think they're going to take advantage. So I got the Pats winning 23-17, going back to the Super Bowl, winning on the road to get back to the Super Bowl. That would be something there. Let's get to the NFC matchup, which will be happening later in the evening, around 6 o'clock. You're going to have the Rams traveling to Seattle to face the Seahawks for a 3rd time. This is going to be a barn burner. I'm really excited that these 2 teams get to play again in the playoffs, because I think these 2 teams, when they played both times, they put it together two of my favorite games of the season. Both of them came down to the wire. The game in Seattle was completely bonkers. And what we saw from those games were fireworks. You saw turnovers, explosive plays. I think you're going to see a lot of that this weekend as well. I think if you're the Rams, I think I would probably be a little concerned with Matthew Stafford and the consistency in the passing game. I felt like they started. It's like since the first quarter of the Carolina game. And I know he hurt his hand in that game, and they've been talking about he has a sprained finger or whatever. It has not felt like the Rams' typical passing offense since the first quarter of the Carolina game in the playoffs. Matthew Stafford is my pick for MVP this year. I think he's been the best quarterback in the NFL. I've sung his praises for the short time I've been on this show, and I've sung his praises when we were doing Maggie and Perloff on Infinity Sports Network, and I've probably talked about him on the fan as well. So Matthew Stafford is one of them dudes, but I do feel like we have not seen prime Matthew Stafford or the guy that we usually are accustomed to seeing in big games, in playoff moments. He's made some great throws and he's had some moments, but they've been more moments, not, oh, he had a great game. I don't think he had a great game against the Panthers at all. I don't think he had a great game against the Bears. I kind of feel like he got outplayed by the other quarterback, Caleb Williams. It's just that Caleb threw a couple turn-up picks, and that was kind of the difference in the game. This is going to be one of those games where I think you see a return to more of what the Rams have been offensively. They had a lot of success moving the ball against the Seahawks in the second go-around. The first go-around, they actually didn't. The Rams got a million interceptions on Sam Darnold, but they actually had trouble kind of capitalizing on those picks in the first game. Second game, that wasn't the case. They lost, but they moved the ball up and down the field against the Seahawks defense, which is ferocious and one of the best as well, and is playing at an extremely high level. I think you'll see probably a return more to that. I don't know if he throws for 450 yards or whatever he threw in that overtime game, but I do think you're going to see a better Rams offense in terms of their passing offense. Because I think the Seahawks, with the way they're able to stop the run, they just erased Christian McCaffrey in the last game. And I don't think they're going to allow Kyron Williams to just run all over them either. They're just a tough team to run on. Their front four is really good. They're really fast. They're really aggressive. So I expect the Seahawks to try to make the Rams a little one-dimensional and allow their pass rush to really try to make an impact on this game. Stafford's going to play much better. I think you will see a better Stafford game. The question becomes with Sam Darnold, has he finally figured out the Rams defense? Because he has struggled mightily against Sean McVay and in turn Chris Shula. He was just god awful in the playoff game last year against the Rams when he was playing for the Vikings. Where I just checked my watch. Sam Darnold got sacked again from last year's game that was played in Arizona. He was god awful in that game. He was god awful in the first game of this year where he threw 4 picks, and he was god awful for basically 3/4 of the game they played just a couple weeks ago, or now about a month ago when they played the Rams, the game that kind of put them in pole positioning to win the NFC and get the number 1 seed. Chris Shula and Sean McVay have his number. Why, I have no idea, but it seems like they just. He has been most turnover prone to me when I've watched Sam Darnold the last 2 years when he's facing that defense, and he finally started to find some answers in that fourth quarter, and they finally started to make some plays. And I wonder, did Kubiak, did Darnold, did they start to figure something out? I'm gonna predict you're gonna have a pretty good Darnold game. I think that seeing this defense now for a third time. And now, like a 4th time in like a year, in basically a calendar year. Because last playoffs, the first round of playoffs to this year's championship, almost a calendar year where he's now seeing the same defense, a lot of the same players 4 times. I think he's going to be very familiar with what the Rams are trying to do to him. So I'm actually predicting Sam Darnold to play really well in this game. I think that the oblique thing, he says he feels a lot better. He got a big boost by that game just being a complete, utter blowout. He only had to throw the ball 17 times. He didn't take a lot of hits because that defense with the 49ers could not get any kind of pass rush, because they haven't gotten pretty much since they lost Nick Bosa. I think you're going to see Sam Darnold play at a pretty high level, which is why I think this is going to end up being a barn burner and a good one. I think you're going to see Matt Stafford bounce back, and I think they're going to need him to bounce back. I think you're going to see a bounce back performance from, obviously, like I said, Sam Darnold in terms of how he plays against the Rams. So I'm expecting a little bit of a high-scoring game. When these kind of high-scoring games happen, I'm thinking, all right, ball in the hand, late, someone's going to have the chance to win the game. Who do I trust more in that kind of moment? I'm going to trust Matt Stafford in that kind of moment. We saw last week against the guy that they're calling the Iceman now. I feel upset, by the way, that they're calling Caleb Williams the Iceman, not because he doesn't deserve it. I just felt like I've been making the case that Joe Burrow should have been dubbed the new Iceman since George Gervin because of just how cold he is and how dope he is, and just him being just Joe Burrow. The way that he was coming in icy, coming into Arrowhead and knocking out the Chiefs, going into Buffalo, all icy and freshed out, beating the Buffalo Bills in the snow. I was like, this guy is the new Iceman. And it never caught on. Never caught on. And now there's a new quarterback who's coming in who's awesome down the stretch, awesome in fourth quarters, who seems to have ice water in his veins. And now the Iceman name for this guy, Caleb Williams, is stuck. So it bothers me. I'm happy for Caleb. It's a dope nickname. I just feel like I had the right guy that deserved it first. And now the next guy that they've given it to, he also deserves it. But I think it should have Joe Burrow. But anyway, Stafford beats the Iceman in the snow, despite the Iceman doing crazy things in the fourth quarter to make that game a game and make it a situation where they almost find a way to upset the. I guess it wasn't upset. They were, even though they were the higher seed, they were an underdog to upset the Rams last week. Stafford still held strong. The other guy made a mistake, and when they needed to, he made some. I think we kind of forget some ridiculous throws to get them into that position. Particularly, I'm thinking about the Devontae Adams throw to the sideline. Stafford's that dude too, and he's cold, man. So I'm gonna say the Rams win this one. I'm gonna say the Rams win by a final score. I'm gonna go 34-31. I think this is a high scoring one, even though the Seahawks defense is really good. Again, these teams know each other extremely well, which means I think these coaches, these offensive coaches, both Clint Kubiak and Sean McVay, I think they will have a game plan that they know as long as their teams execute, they should have some success. They should be able to move the ball. I think weather, I don't expect to be an impact. I don't think in either game. Seattle's actually going to be quite sunny, 44 degrees. So nothing with weather, unlike last week where I was in Chicago, it was 15 degrees and there was snow. So that weather is not going to be impacted in this game. Weather also not expected to be much of an impact really in Denver. It will be cold. It'll be 21 degrees, but no snow. It'll be clear skies. So they'll deal with some cold. I think those guys will be fine. I don't think that should have an impact much on really the play. We're not talking about sub-zero temperatures or something crazy like that. So they should be fun games. One thing on the Rams as well that I do think will be something to watch, and it's probably the one Achilles heel I think for their very excellent head coach in Sean McVay, is watch for Sean McVay to potentially get conservative at a time that may hurt his team. I feel like it is one of the things that sometimes allows teams to hang around with the Rams is the Rams can get an early lead, the Rams can be moving the ball, there could be a level of comfortability, and they may get stopped on a third and short, or they may have a bad play here or there, and then Sean McVay is punting on a third or fourth and short, or he's starting to take the air out of the ball. For a guy who is a young coach who is seen as a progressive offensive mind, who's produced some of the best offenses in the NFL since he's entered the league as a head coach, he has a propensity when things get tough to actually get conservative, or when things are going well. Like things are going well, and because they're going well, he's all right. Now it's time to get conservative. He should be careful with that. Again, I don't think this is a game where you can play around with fire and say, okay, we have a lead here, let's get conservative. Because, again, you watched the last game. You essentially lost your shot at the number one overall seed because you took your foot off the gas. And you can't let that happen again. I hope that Sean McVay learns from that and you don't see a repeat of what we saw from him earlier in the season when I think you saw him, again, take his foot completely off the gas. And that allowed the Seahawks to make some weird plays, the refs to make an impact on the game. And then, as you saw, like in overtime, okay, they were able to rev up the offense again. Like, it's always there. The explosive plays, the big-time offense, it's always there for them. They can always go back to that bag. It almost feels like Sean McVay purposely turns off the gas. I don't get it. It's so bizarre to me. And, like, you know, I don't know if it's because, like, you know, he's been around football for so long. His grandfather was part of this league. Like, does he still have a lot of old-school mindsets? And that's why he gets conservative in these weird times. But that's going to be something to watch, too. Watch these decisions he makes on fourth down. Watch some of these play-calling decisions if they have a lead. I think that could end up being a big story if they lose this game. Will be, man, Sean McVay had these guys again, and he started doing stuff that didn't allow them to really keep their foot on their neck and close them out the way they're supposed to. But I'm excited about these games. Am I thrilled to watch Jarrett Stidham? I think as NFL fans, we got really robbed with what should have been like an amazing story, and what should have been, I think still will be a good NFL championship Sunday, but should have been like an elite championship Sunday. Like the coronation of a new sheriff in town, potentially in the AFC, with two young quarterbacks, two second-year guys making their way to the Super Bowl, battling in a win or go home situation. Should have been in a phenomenal, awesome, incredible story. These are the number 1, number 2 seeds. Both teams have won 14 games this year. It should have been easy. And then, again, a freaking botched kneel down by Drake May in their offensive line. He breaks his ankle. We don't get that. The Seahawks game is gas. I think the Rams-Seahawks, sign me up. I'll be seated. I'll be ready to go. But I think both of the games will be competitive. I think both of these games will be fun. And I think the reason why I still think the Broncos-Patriots game will be interesting will be because of Sean Payton. Sean Payton, he's going to cook up some weird things. He's going to cook up some things that are going to keep the team in the game. And they do have a defense. And I think they're playing a team that will allow them to stick around. They're playing a team that will give up some stuff. They are playing a team that's going to make some mistakes. So the Broncos won't feel, I don't think they'll feel like they're going to be out of the game at some point in time, as long as they don't shoot themselves in the foot completely. So it should be a fun NFL Championship Sunday. Again, 3 o'clock it begins. You got Patriots going to Denver to take on the Denver Broncos. Winner goes to the Super Bowl. Same stakes on the other side. NFC title game. Rams going over to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. Winner, of course, again, goes on to the Super Bowl. Let's shift gears here and let's talk about a story that came down the pipe, and I almost couldn't believe it, but then it kind of made some sense, and I'm not going to say I'm concerned, but I'm definitely paying attention. So here's what we learned yesterday. I want you guys to hear from NFL analyst, is a fair way to put it, Brian Baldinger. And he is entering a new name into the fray when we talk about people who could become the next Pittsburgh Steelers head coach. And I'll be honest, this is not a name I would have ever considered, but he lays out the case for why and what he is hearing, that Miami head coach Mario Cristobal could be a name to watch.
Pittsburgh Steelers. I hear, I'm not out here trying to play reporter or doing any of that nonsense, but I hear the Steelers are very interested in Mario Cristobal. And I think, the coach of the University of Miami, I think Mario Cristobal actually would really translate to the NFL.
Wow. We have Adam Schefter, we have Ian Rappaport, we have Diana Rossini, we have Jay Glazer. That's probably the top insider people we would think of. I'm hitting all the different markets, all the different people. Mario Cristobal has not been named once at all when it comes to NFL jobs at period, let alone the Pittsburgh Steelers job, which is arguably the crown jewel of this NFL cycle. What I will say about it is, if you follow the history of the Miami Hurricanes, this is their history. Is they get a coach who turns around the program. That coach gets eyeballs from the NFL. Why? I don't know why it's always the Miami Hurricanes, but this is their history. You go to Jimmy Johnson, I can give you Dennis Erickson, I can give you Butch Davis. Their coach gets eyeballs. Hell, and even Howard Schnellenberger, in theory, he went to the USFL, so it wasn't the NFL, but he went to pro football. This is Miami. This is what happened to the program. And that situation, thinking about the history of it, I'm like, well, this has been what has happened before, so I get that. So let's get some more from Baldinger, who said this on his podcast yesterday, as to why he actually thinks Mario Cristobal will be a good fit in the NFL.
I watched his practice in the spring. Jason Taylor coaching the defensive line. They got 2 number 1 picks on that defensive line. Mario Cristobal coaching the offensive line. Their right tackle is going to be a first-round pick. There's talent everywhere on that team. But the way that Mario coached that team reminded me of what old school coaches used to do. They're limited in the NFL, how many times you can put pads on and hit and all that stuff, but they're going to get after it like they did. And I think Mario could actually transfer to the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing about this. So first of all, just so now I feel, again, equipped to talk about this from the Miami side of this, just kind of what's been going on. Because, all right, well, how has Mario Cristobal been moving since you guys lost in the national championship game? Miami has been extremely aggressive in the transfer portal at this point in time. They actually landed Damon Wilson, who is considered to be maybe the best defensive player in the portal. He's another defensive end, so we saw what Akeem Mesidor and Ruben Bain did for them. Now they get another guy in Damon Wilson. They've also been entrenched, and you've talked about this story a bunch. Not so much from the Miami side, more of just the college football side. They've been entrenched in this Darian Mensah situation at Duke, where Mensah is trying to enter the portal. Duke is trying to sue him to keep him, but the rumor is that Miami is expected to be the team that he's going to land with. There was a kid that Miami was expected to lose to the portal, and Gerard Pringle, their running back, who's a freshman and was highly recruited, and he came back to Miami after entering the portal briefly and then coming back. So what I'll tell you is the way the Hurricanes have been moving and the way recruits and transfers have been treating them, it doesn't feel like they're treating them like Mario Cristobal is a flight risk. You'll see that. You'll see sometimes when you start hearing a guy with NFL rumors, you start to see recruits start pulling it out or recruits start going other places. That is not happening right now. Miami right now is getting kind of hot right now on the transfer portal. Now that their season's ended, they can kind of focus. They're getting hot in the portal. They're starting to get some names. So I don't see Mario Cristobal moving like a guy that's expecting to leave Miami. That's not what I've seen. Does that mean it won't happen? It has happened before, but that's not what I've seen. And I think that any Miami fan would say that's not what we've seen. Mario Cristobal, in some instances, makes sense for the Steelers, and in some instances, I scratch my head. So here's where he makes sense. He's a guy that I agree with Baldy that if you want a guy who's going to preach physicality and preach toughness, then and preach about winning in the trenches, as he always talks about, yes, and that is Pittsburgh Steelers football. Mario Cristobal absolutely embodies that. If you're looking for anybody in the college level that's going to embody that kind of coaching. So, yes, there's that point that I would agree with in terms of he does match the Steeler vibe, the Steeler energy, what you expect from a Pittsburgh Steeler head coach. He also is the CEO type coach that the Steelers typically seem to like, right? Like whether it's Chuck Noll, whether it was Mike Tomlin, whether it was Bill Cowher, not in that order, but those three guys. The Steelers have not been about saying, let me get the best defensive play caller, or let me get the best offensive play caller to be my head coach. They prefer CEO type head coaches that oversee everything, that put people in the right positions, and can manage game and manage personality and all the nine, and be more of like, again, a motivated CEO type rather than I'm a X's and O type guy. Not to say that Cowher or Noel or Tomlin didn't know X's and O's. They obviously did. They're NFL head coaches, and they were some of the most successful head coaches of all time. But they're not, I'm a play caller. Mario Cristobal is by trade an offensive line coach. So he is similar in that regard. He is a CEO. He has an offensive play caller who calls the plays, and he helps with the in terms of the protection schemes. He has a offensive line coach in Alex Mirabal. I don't know how he would rank in NFL offensive line head coaches, but offensive line coaches rather. But when it comes to college, I would now, especially after what we saw this season, I would stand on 10 toes and say he's probably the best offensive line coach in college football. He's very in depth with like what he wants from his offensive line, how he wants to scheme them, how he wants them to perform, and pass pro and run game and all that stuff. But outside of that, this is not a guy who's saying, hey, we're calling all these plays, or I'm gonna script the first drive of a game. That's not how Mario Cristobal coaches. He is a CEO type. I'm overseeing everything. I'm making sure everybody's doing their job. I'm doing game management, which we'll get to in a second. Is why I think it's a little weird that they want him. I'm doing game management. I'm handling those other things, but I'm delegating play calling to other people. That's who the Steelers like. They like guys like that. They like guys who aren't going to be entrenched with having to only focus on defense or only focus on offense. They want someone who can oversee everything. So Mario Cristobal, from that standpoint, also makes sense. And then again, I mentioned the thing I mentioned before, which is that he's from a program where it has been proven that guys who coach there seem to be able to find their way to the NFL and have some modicum of success. They haven't always been super successful, but they've had some success. Jimmy Grant Johnson was extremely successful, right? And Butch Davis and Erickson were a little hit or miss. They had some success, not Super Bowl success or anything like that. So they can look at it and say, well, listen, we've seen what has happened with the University of Miami and how this has happened before and this has worked. Maybe it could work for us. So here are the things that, for me, would be puzzling about hiring Mario Cristobal. So I understand. So let's go to the game plan thing and the CEO type. Because I get that is the role they want their coaches to see, and that is something that Mario Cristobal has done with every team he's coached so far. I'm not 100% sure he's still like great at game management still, which is, if you're going to be a CEO coach, that's the one thing you have to be great at. Because if you're not calling plays and you're not going to be so entrenched with like the play-to-play strategy, then at the very least you need to be able to like oversee like how the overall game is going, and just like how your team is overall, how they're doing in terms of discipline and execution and things like that. That is where Miami is actually kind of run into bugaboos. That like he's not had a problem recruiting. He's not had a problem with building a level of a culture of physicality and toughness. We saw that the last 2 years. He has had a problem with game management. We saw it in the national championship game. I mean, not to get insidery football with Miami, but Miami's kicker throughout the playoffs was really struggling in Carter Davis. He decides to go into that halftime where he's playing for a 50-yard field goal for a guy who was hitting less than 50% of his field goals in the playoffs. That didn't seem like a good game management decision, but that's the kind of stuff Mario Cristobal does. He's also a pretty conservative coach, which maybe that does fall in line with what the Steelers want, but he tends to play a little conservative. His game management has been questionable. He had the infamous not kneel down in a game where they should have beat Georgia Tech years ago, and then they fumble the ball, and Georgia Tech throws 2 bombs and wins the game on a touchdown in a game that Miami had locked away had they just kneeled the ball. So I think I would prefer somebody who maybe, if I'm looking for a CEO type coach, somebody I feel more confident in, that on the NFL level they could produce on a high level as a CEO level coach. I think Mario Cristobal, I think he's grown a lot as a head coach. I can't sit here today with what the run that Miami just went on and start talking about how Mario Cristobal is a bum. I'm not going to do that, and he doesn't deserve it because he's not. But there's still growth to be had to me about where Cristobal is as a head coach. That it would surprise me from that standpoint that the NFL would be like, we want Mario Cristobal after what we just saw. That would surprise me. It's not to say that he's not improved. It's not to say that he's not doing a great job. It's not to say that a lot of people weren't wrong, including myself, that he is a very good head coach. He has his flaws. He's not perfect, but he does also bring traits that are extremely welcoming and extremely important to building a championship caliber team. He has proven that. But plucking a college guy, always risky in general. Plucking a guy who has been kind of known to be a guy who his teams lose big games, his teams underachieve, off of the first time his team actually overcoming that adversity and finally playing up to their potential, feels like a reach. Feels like a reach to me. I'm being real. The other thing too is, what's surprising, why I heard about Cristobal as well, is Cristobal's a little older than the kind of coach that they go for. I mean, Cristobal is 55 years old. The Steelers have been operating as if they want to have coaches that could be their coach for the next 20, 25 years. They've been getting these super young guys. And, you know, Mike Tomlin didn't go 20 years. What he went? It's 19 years or 18 years, however long he went. I don't think Cristobal's coaching 19 years. He's 55 years old now. He'll be 56 by the time the next season rolls around. Is he coaching until he's 73, 74? I mean, he could, but I don't necessarily see that. So the Steelers have also been the type to go for the younger head coach. Chuck Noll was young when they hired him. Bill Cowher was younger when they hired him. And then, of course, Mike Tomlin, I think, was the youngest head coach in the NFL when they hired him. Maybe the youngest ever when they hired him. So Cristobal being 55 also will be kind of a veer away from that. It does not mean that they can't say, hey, this time we're going to get a 55-year-old coach because he matches all the other things. But that part of the Cristobal thing also surprised me. If I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, I would feel very kind of hands up in the air if this was the hire. If they decide to say, we're going to go to college, we're going to take Mario Cristobal, I think you'd say, okay, listen, like I liked what I saw from Miami and the physicality and toughness that he showed. He definitely instilled a level of no quit that I think anybody can respect. They still don't execute the best. They still have some dumb penalties. They still have some mental lapses, and we saw that it probably cost them a national championship, and that has been what people have talked about with Mario Cristobal team since he's gotten into coaching. Is that something I'm running to and excited about if I'm a Steeler fan? I don't know. And then I'll say this as well, like, what are the odds of this happening? I would also be surprised if this happened. Again, from my standpoint, and who's to say, listen, so these when it comes to coaching cycles, like these things are ruthless and they're clandestine. There's secrecy going on that we would never understand. So could Mario be acting as if I'm gonna be the head coach of Miami and nothing to see here, nothing to hear here, and I'm just gonna do my job and act like everything's good, and then just pull out the rug and become the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers? I've seen crazier things. I cannot sit there and say, "Oh my God, I can't believe that ever happened." It would be stunning, but I could not tell you that. Oh, that would be the craziest thing I've ever seen in a coaching cycle. It wouldn't. I saw Nick Saban say, "I'm not going to be the head coach of Alabama," and then became the head coach of Alabama like 3 weeks later. So it's just that is the profession. I just feel like with how personal Mario Cristobal has made bringing the U to a new level of excellence, because he hates saying going back. So I'm not going to say go back to excellence or bring the U back, but establishing a new standard of excellence at the U. It would surprise me that he would leave right as it seems like he's got this thing going in the right direction. That would surprise me. It really would. Even for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers, again, is a crown jewel job. It is one of the jobs that if you're a professional NFL, if you're a professional football coach, whether it's in college or in the pros, the Pittsburgh Steelers is one of the jobs where they call, you take their call, and you probably say, all right, where do I sign? I just think the Miami ties for Cristobal are so personal. He is from Miami. He played at Miami. He has been an assistant coach at Miami. Again, his family is from Miami. There's a lot of emotional things about as he was taking this job, and his mother was very ill. His mother has recently passed away, and that was one of the impetuses for wanting to go to Miami was to make his mom and make his parents proud, both of them now obviously deceased. And if he would then pull the shoot from what is going in the right direction to then say, all right, I'm going to take the Steeler job, as great as it is, that would surprise me. And nothing surprises me in terms of overall coaches moving, but I just think given what I'm seeing, do I think that my head coach is a flight risk for the Steelers? I don't sit here today and think that, oh yeah, he's definitely going to be the Steeler head coach. I think it's something to be noteworthy, something to talk about, because anytime the Steelers want a guy and it's a crown jewel organization, they deserve all the attention in the world. I think Mario Cristobal stays with the Steelers. Stays with the Miami Hurricanes. I think the Steelers end up going elsewhere. I think part of the reason why you probably haven't heard Mario Cristobal's name, and shout out to Brian Baldinger, by the way, for getting the scoop. That's a phenomenal scoop by him. Is probably because this is being done very, again, behind closed doors, very clandestine. They don't want people to know. Mario probably doesn't want people to know that he has had a conversation with the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's so many people and coaches that will say, like, you don't know how many NFL jobs or and college coaches, NBA jobs I've been offered that, like, you wouldn't believe, but they never talk about it just because everything has to be so quiet, because you don't want to just throw your whole college fan base into complete hysteria or cause all these issues, or have recruits that then start looking elsewhere because they hear you're going to the NFL or the NBA. So the college guy going to the NFL a lot of times ends up being a surprise, or ends up being oh snap, we didn't know that guy was even a candidate. So I think he is a candidate. I think that they are interested, and I think they probably reached out. I'm going to say that he is not going to be there. I hope to God that I am not wrong, because I think if he does leave Miami, as much as I've talked a lot of crap about Mario Cristobal because of some of the shortcomings that they've had since he's been there, that would be maybe one of the most devastating blows that the program has seen, I don't know, since the Devin Shapiro scandal. Like, it's so clear right now that Mario Cristobal is the Miami program right now. Whether good, bad, or indifferent, he is. And right now, it's pretty good. You just went to the national title game for the first time since 2003. So if you then lose that guy and say, okay, now we have to find someone else to take that job. Now, listen, I think that he has put Miami in a position, and with the money that's coming into the program, where I think that where before Miami looked at it and said, it's not the greatest job. They kind of broke. They play in a terrible stadium. And you probably got to deal with some kind of NCAA violations. There were reasons why Miami couldn't get top flight coaches that made sense. I think now, if Mario were to leave, they probably would be much better equipped to get a top flight head coach. But you're also in a weird spot where this is like so late into the game where we're now, the transfer portal literally is like closing, or it may have closed already for people. Like, you're not going to, I don't know how many coaches are going to leave their good, solid positioning say, okay, yeah, I'm going to take off and go to Miami. I don't. They might. It is the city of Miami. It's a beautiful place to be living in and be rich in. But you'd be coming in kind of with a train that's already kind of moving. You'd be trying to jump into a moving car essentially, because we're off and running into the off season. I know sometimes because of the college football playoff, we're kind of like still locked into, it's still the college football season. No, the off season began literally, like, I would argue, but prior to the conference championships. Teams are talking about transfers and getting guys and coaches and all that stuff. It was all moving 100 miles an hour. And now we're off into the next season. We've been off into the next season, despite the fact that we were still having a college football playoff. As a head coach from another team, or I don't know if you're hiring a coordinator for Miami, you're probably hiring a head coach. Is a head coach from another team going to be like, you know what? I'm going to leave my power program here, where we've already got everything, all ducks in a row, and ready to go for next year. I'm going to leave my program right now to go to Miami and try to convince a bunch of kids to stay. I mean, I would be surprised by that. I would be surprised by that in terms of the kind of quality coach they would get. So I think for Miami, whatever money it's going to take to keep Mario Cristobal there, because I'm sure he's going to come back and say, all right, I took you to the national championship game. Yes, I made some bonuses for getting us here, but hand out. Where's the bread? I'm assuming he's going to want a little money. I wouldn't be surprised if perhaps part of the reason this finally got leaked was because maybe he's like, where's the contract extension now that I got you guys all the way to the national title game? So we know how this game goes too, where you start leveraging other jobs, other teams, other people, excuse me, to get yourself some more bread if you're a coach. That definitely could also be what is at play here with this whole Mario Cristobal situation. But very fascinating, man. Steelers. We know that Brian Flores is not going to be the guy. He actually reached the extension to stay in Minnesota, so he's going to remain defensive coordinator. So it's kind of, we don't really know what's going to happen with the Steelers job right now. I don't know. Like, again, this was kind of like very interesting news, because it was like the Steelers are kind of keeping it close to the vest, it seems like, which is what they normally do, and it's how they operate. Very close to the vest regarding who potentially will replace Mike Tomlin. I think I want to point something else real quickly on the Steelers as well, because I saw shout out to Andrew Filipponi, who does local radio in Pittsburgh. He's an amazing radio host and just, a smart guy and a cool dude. I've worked with him a little bit as well. And Brooke Pryor, who writes for ESPN, she wrote a pretty long and extensive article about how the Steeler program has some issues beyond just the fact that they don't have a head coach, and the fact that there are concerns about other things regarding the Pittsburgh Steelers that lead this to be a job that, while definitely, again, a crown jewel job, one that people are kind of asking questions about in terms of like whether or not you can really be successful there. So some of the things that Brooke Pryor had noted was problems with ownership and their lack of spending. And if I could find it here, I want to be able to find it quickly, but one of the things that has been mentioned has been the lack of money being spent on their staff. And the reporting essentially was that the Pittsburgh Steelers apparently for the last few years have had one of the smallest staffs in the NFL. Like, I didn't know, like, I thought you all had the same amount of staff. I didn't know that you could have more or less. But I'm reading here, in 2024, on average, NFL teams had 23 assistant coaches, excluding strength and conditioning. That's according to ESPN data. The Steelers had just 18, tying them with the Colts for the fewest assistant coaches in the league that season. A big part of that, of course, was Tomlin's preference. The next head coach, though, will almost undoubtedly come from an organization with a more robust staff, and Steelers could be faced with needing to expand their coaching roster. In the final season in Dallas for Mike McCarthy, who was a candidate, he had 24 coaches. Obviously, Flores, who's now out, he comes on a staff of 26, and then he had 22 when he was the head coach of Miami. So she also said there are signs the Rooney's might be hesitant to open his checkbook. Art Rooney II might be hesitant to open his checkbook to increase budget for the new staff. In the past 2 years, NFLPA report cards, which anonymously survey players from every organization, Rooney received subpar marks in the ownership category. In 25, the Steelers ranked 28th in ownership and received a D grade. Rooney's average rating for perceived willingness to invest in facilities was ranked 6 out of 10 from Steelers players, which ranked 30th in the NFL. A year earlier, the Steelers were graded an F in the ownership category. So that is, if you're a Steeler fan, something to keep an eye on when it comes to this coaching search. Is this going to be a factor for some of these guys? Is this part of the reason why they may be looking at a college coach? They're like, well, these NFL coaches are going to be saying, oh, give me all this staff, give me this, give me that. Maybe we could get a college coach who won't ask for all that, and they'll just be happy to be the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach, and they'll take whatever crap we want. That, I think, is a tea leaf to all of this, which is why I wanted to bring it up. And I'm glad that Phil Pony had pointed it out, and great job by Brooke for, really outlining other details. They mentioned as well, obviously, the quarterback situation is very in flux, and it's kind of unclear like who could be available for them to maybe take over. Sorry, I didn't know I blew that up. Who may be available to take over for Aaron Rodgers, who's not expected to be back next year. She mentions Mac Jones and Geno Smith. Those names aren't gonna really excite people at this point. C.J. Stroud had a disastrous playoff run. In part because of what you did to him in one of the games. Are you going to be thrilled that you want to go after C.J. Stroud after what you've seen, even though he was a top pick and was previously a Pro Bowl quarterback? Is Kyler Murray going to be a guy? Is Tua Tagovailoa going to be a guy? They obviously had Justin Fields just last year. He actually played okay for them. Do you bring back Justin Fields? There's not great options out there. I mentioned Malik Willis is possible for Miami. I think he also definitely, to me, looks like a Pittsburgh Steeler too. Is Malik Willis the guy? There are reasons why this job, while it's the Steelers, there are some questions about where they are. I think I've said a bunch that they're staring down the barrel of a rebuild. Art Rooney said that the team is not interested in a rebuild. He better get interested. He better realize that we're an older team. We have some guys that are losing value every minute they're on this team. And maybe better if we move off of these guys. Maybe we take 2 steps back, but it can help us going 3 steps forward and moving forward and hopefully maybe rebuilding this thing correctly. So we're not stuck in this Mike Tomlin purgatory where we're winning 9 games every year and 10 games every year and getting eliminated in the first round. And not just getting eliminated, like Andrew Fillipponi mentioned, getting destroyed. It's not been that these have been competitive games. Oh, they go into the wild card round or the divisional round and they're losing heartbreakers. No, they're getting curb stomped every time they get to the playoffs. So if you want that to not be your future, which is part of the reason why so many in Pittsburgh wanted Mike Tomlin gone. I think deep down, some people in Pittsburgh, in the organization, also probably said, at least now we can get off of this Mike Tomlin train of not being good enough to win a Super Bowl, but be happy that we can have a winning record. If you want to get off that train, you're going to have to fix some of this stuff. You're going to have to fix maybe the investment in the staffing. You're going to have to fix the quarterback situation, which has been a problem for them for a long time. And again, in order to do that, for the quarterback situation especially, it may require you taking a step back here. We have to show up with one more thing here, man. I want to talk about LeBron James. Before we do that, again, this is 40 Days and 40 Nights. We're on day 10 of 40 Days and 40 Nights. This is the end of week 2. We have one more show again later tonight. No guest plans as of yet, but hopefully we'll have some soon. And I'm hoping, I said before I talked to Kendall about maybe being a weekly guest on Friday. So maybe we'll have Kendall a little later. Maybe we'll have some other people as well. But again, this is 40 Days and 40 Nights, a show hosted by your boy EJ Stewart, where every weekday, Monday through Friday, we do live content, live streaming. 8 a.m., 6 p.m., we go live, talking sports, talking pop culture, whether it be superhero movies, superhero television, whether it be hip-hop music, whether it be wrestling. Reality TV has jumped into the fold. Traders was on last night. It was a great episode of Traders last night. This show has got me in a damn chokehold. And now I'm annoyed because I've caught up. So now that I've caught up, now I'm stuck in this idea that, now I got to wait till next Thursday when I was watching these episodes, basically binging them until this week. And then I watched it with everybody else last night. Traders was awesome last night. It's what's funny about this show and funny about this community, and I'm watching it with Andrea, is obviously, again, the premise of the show is it is a whodunit kind of like mystery game where the purpose of the show is there are people living in a castle, and 3 of the, let's say 20 people, I think it's about 20 people in the show, have been designated as traitors, quote unquote. And every night they are quote unquote killing or eliminating one of their members of the team. The goal is to stay in the game as long as possible, whether you're a trader or a quote unquote faithful who's not been designated trader, to stay in as long as possible so that you could then win the pot of money at the end. And throughout the show, they're doing all these challenges to win all this money. And whoever is still around by the end, they get the boatload of cash that's waiting for them at the end. What's funny about the show, and I don't know, I saw something saying that, NBC is going to do a version that's going to just involve like regular people, which may be my opportunity to get on Traders. If you're watching, you're looking for somebody to be on your show, holla at your boy. But what I've seen is, because these people are celebrities and reality show people and personalities that we are familiar with, and they've been in Hollywood a little bit, like they're performative, we kind of have an idea of who these people are. So now what I see, which is funny, is because I'm still locked in like winning, I'm a very competitive person. So people are watching the show, and there are people who are not traders. Like, the goal is to try to eliminate the traders, try to figure out the traders to solve the mystery. There are people who are not traders, but because they're just annoying, people want them gone. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, they're annoying, and like there were a couple people, like I was like, yeah, it may be better that they're gone because at least they're not causing so many distractions because of how annoying they are and how much people hate them. But like, there are times where like these annoying people are like making good points or like have actually solved who they think the traitor is, and then they're still not. My fiance watching the show like, no, get them out of here. I want them eliminated. I'm like, wait, Andre, are we rooting for the traitors or are we rooting for the people to try to find the traitor, the faithfuls? And then like the lines get blurred, and I thought it was maybe just her because she's going crazy about this guy on the show, Colton, who's a former bachelor, going crazy about this guy. We gotta get rid of this guy. He's annoying. I'm like, wait a minute, but he's a faithful. He's not a traitor. Like, yeah, he's annoying, and yeah, he's playing this game really idiotically in many ways. But like now he's kind of right about what's happening, and no one wants to listen to him. Everybody's like, oh, we hate this guy. And then I go on the internet because now I'm trying to get familiarized with what is traders Twitter, what is traders Reddit. I want to get to now see what are people thinking, what are the theories, how are people feeling about the strategies and what's going on in the game. And then people are saying the same thing. Oh, get this guy out of here, I hate him, he sucks. I'm like, wait a minute, but he's a faithful. Like, if you wanted to catch the traders, catch the people murdering everybody every night, murdering some of your favorites, then you're going to have to, unfortunately, get these people to get on board and not root for them. So I find the show extremely compelling. I would suggest it to anybody. I think it's a fun watch. I guess I think anybody could really watch it, but if you have young kids, they do curse because it's on Peacock. I guess it's not like Peacock doesn't have any rules. So I mentioned, I think when I mentioned it a couple days ago, I said it was on NBC, which NBC owns Peacock, but technically it's a Peacock show. So you might not be able to find it like on a clean version where maybe there's not cursing. But if you don't mind your kid watching an F-bomb go fly here or there, it's fine. It could definitely be on television. It could definitely be on NBC today if they just bleeped out some of the curses. And it's not that they're cursing incessantly, but there are some F-bombs. There are some people saying certain curses. So that would be the only thing. You're saying, oh, I can't. I don't know if I would watch it with my kid just because of that. But otherwise, it's perfectly fine to watch. And it is very fun. It is a very fun show. And again, they had another episode last night. It was really good. So that's what I was doing last night prior to watching the Lakers and the Clippers, which is a great segue to Lakers and Clippers. But again, like I said before, 40 days, 40 nights. Your boy EJ Stewart talking all things sports, pop culture. We are broadcasting live right here on YouTube, New Generation Media. So make sure you catch us on YouTube, New Generation Media. You also catch us on X, EJ_Stewart. And then you can also check us out on Instagram, Action EJ. That's where we're streaming live on IG Live. My guy Eric, I saw join earlier. Shout out to Knicks Fan TV. I saw Knicks Fan TV join. Shout out to Knicks Fan TV. Shout out to CP, the franchise. That was someone I mentioned a couple days ago that I saw him randomly on the subway. CP, if you ever want to come on the show, open invitation, as you can now see, if you're watching still. But that was super cool. So you can watch multiple avenues for live. You want to watch live on IG, Action EJ. You want to watch live on X, EJ_Stewart. You want to watch live on YouTube, which is kind of the general hub for all things New Generation Media. And make sure you subscribe to the channel. You can watch us there, New Generation Media on YouTube. And like I said before, man, any kind of support you can give to the show is definitely welcome. So If you're watching this episode, you like this episode, you like what we're doing with 40 Days and 40 Nights, you like what we're doing with New Generation Media, it's been a great start to the year so far. Make sure you give us a like on this video. Like the video, get in the comment section, get some comments about what you think about what's going on today and what we've been talking about, or any other questions you may have at some point, and maybe I'll try to do it today. I'm always scared to do this because it's always kind of embarrassing when you do the ask me anything and then like no one asks a question, so you're like, oh man, I guess somebody cares what I think. So but I wanted to maybe some point kind of do an Ask EJ segment for one day we do every week. Maybe we'll do it later tonight. Maybe I'll give it a shot. Maybe we'll do it Friday. But Fridays will be the Ask EJ thing. But if you haven't, get in the comment section, asking questions about what's happening in the show. That helps engagement. Commenting after the video's up, just saying, hey, you love the show, whatever. That certainly helps if you're on YouTube. If you're on, and I got, people already in YouTube. I'm going to shout out my guy Bob Custer in Nevada. Bob in Nevada, who's a Weedo and coffee drinker from the Maggie and Perloff show. He's here in the chat. Shout out to my guy Bob. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching the show. All kind of engagement helps, man. So if you give us a like, man, that helps us. If you're able to, again, comment on the show live or comment after the show, that helps. That's all on YouTube. When it comes to a situation where you want to, again, support the show otherwise, beyond that, we're podcasting this as well. So anytime you're able to listen, you could always listen. So we're live right now. If you can't watch live because of any situation, totally fine. And we're also on YouTube, and the episodes get posted on YouTube, and they're there even after we're done going live. Let's say you can't watch. Say you're on the road. Let's say you're traveling. Let's say you're working out, and you prefer to listen to the podcast version. That's also possible as well. I podcast these episodes almost immediately after the show ends. So I give it like an hour, maybe even less. And usually the episodes are up there on our podcast channel. You can find our podcast channel on New Generation Podcast Network. That's where you'll search to find 40 Days and 40 Nights. Each day that we've done so far is already up there. So search New Generation Podcast Network. And that is wherever you get your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google Play. Wherever you get your podcasts, search New Generation, NU Generation Podcast Network. And you will find 40 Days and 40 Nights, the audio version. So you can take this show wherever you go. We also got another question here from Bob. I'm gonna ask so many questions here before we get to LeBron stuff. EJ, you do much sports investing? I don't got the bread for sports investing. That's what you're asking me. Ask EJ questions to start now. No, I don't have the kind of bread. If you got some kind of bread, Bob, and you want to get in some investing and you want to help a brother out, and I'm interested. But if you're looking for money from me, I'm the wrong person right now. As well noted, I don't have a job, which is very obvious because of what happened with the Infinity Sports Network being closed down and Maggie and Perloff on Infinity Sports Network ending. So that obviously is not So yeah, my pockets are a little light, as Shannon Sharp said after his scandal. Not for anything scandalous. I didn't do anything like Shannon Sharp did, but my pockets are a little light at this point in time. So no, I can't do any sports investing at this point. Would I invest? If I had bread, sure. I gotta get some bread first, right? And yes, we do have over 1,000 subscribers. Thanks, Bob, for that support. Hope you became a subscriber as well. And I've said it before as well. Again, we've been at this for years. Like I know, for a lot of folks who have been watching 40 Days and 40 Nights, this is like their first foray into like my internet presence, and that makes sense because who am I? I'm not someone who had 900,000 followers or even 50,000 followers or 50,000 subscribers, but we've been at this game for a minute, Bob. And people watching. I mean, me and my brothers, we've been doing New Generation Media since 2016, I believe, maybe even earlier. No, it's 2026 right now, right? Yeah, that's probably about right. Like 2015, either 2015, 2016, sometime around there. I think 2016 sounds about right. We've been doing podcasts every week. We used to do sports talk every week with me and my brother. We talk sports, talking basketball, talking football, talking baseball. That was out every week. We also did, obviously, again, we're still doing Hero Talk, which is our Marvel podcast and DC podcast. My brothers also do the Imperial Broadcast, which is a Star Wars podcast where they talk about all things Star Wars, and there's plenty of stuff going on because you got new leadership with Kathleen Kennedy leaving. So they do a Star Wars podcast, which is super awesome. I suggest anybody, if you like Star Wars, check their podcast out. They do a great job. And we just recently launched a wrestling podcast, Off Script, with my guy Lucas Goldman, who's an ex-WWE writer. He was essentially Vince McMahon's writing assistant He took notes from Vince McMahon. He was in final meetings with Vince had with the last bits of creative when they were putting together shows so that Vince can keep track of what was going on. So he was very close to the creative process for WWE and Vince McMahon in Vince McMahon's last days as chairman of WWE, which only that I don't even gotta say anymore, right? In terms of just like how chaotic that must have been, the crazy stories that he must have. And we talk about some of those stories and some of those things that he's experienced and some of the things we've learned since and while he was there. It's a phenomenal show. We haven't got to do one in a little bit while because Lucas has been a little busy. But I think we started last spring and then we went all the way through the summer. We were doing shows just about every week and they were awesome. So again, definitely go check out Off Script. But yeah, man, we've been at this thing for a while. We've been doing NFL NBA draft content. That's the reason why we got a bunch of subscribers as well. So yeah, we're trying to get this thing going, man. We want to be even much bigger than just the 1.1K subscribers we have. But yes, we do have a pretty good following so far. I want to go back to earlier in the show. My guy Ariel, aka Marquito, who's been consistent in the chat. He put in there, although these games are going to be fun, talking about Championship Sunday, I really wanted the Bears playing Seahawks. That would have been incredible. Yeah, I mean the Bears, I think, had become America's team. I think that's that's for this season. The Cowboys are always quote unquote America's team, but in terms of like the team that everyone kind of was getting behind, if your team was out of it and you had no say in the game, you weren't a rival or anybody like that. Like if you're an AFC fan or if like Ariel I know is a Giants fan, so you have no real beef with the Bears per se. If you're saying, all right, who am I rooting for in these playoffs? The Bears became like the team that you wanted to root for, right? Like Caleb Williams is a lot of fun. Ben Johnson is a lot of fun. They're a team that has kind of been downtrodden for many years, so seeing them maybe have an opportunity to get themselves back to the Super Bowl would have been really cool. They haven't been back since Devin Hester ran that touchdown back against the Colts. They still lost that game, and then before that, obviously, it was the '85 Bears, and that's been it. So we want to see the Bears, this version of the Bears, which seems a lot of fun to follow. They've been playing these incredible games. We want to see them. So I agree. I think I would have preferred to see the Bears just because rooting interest would have been easier, and they're just a lot of fun. I am really excited, though, about this Rams-Seahawks game because I do think that these are the two best teams in the NFC, and they also, to be fair, played two classics this year. The first game they played was in a phenomenal game that ended on a field goal. The second game that they played, obviously also a phenomenal game, ended in overtime. These are some great matchups that we've had with these two teams. So these are some teams that I'm excited to see play together. Totally understand the Bears definitely have been a team that have been of interest and have been fun to watch. So I definitely feel like it makes sense that yes, I would agree. I also wanted to see the Bears as well, but we are where we are. And let's go back to Bob, who's also back in the comments and saying, EJ, in my opinion, even if a fan puts up 10 minutes on a game, it makes the game or maybe $10 maybe. I guess game more interesting. Oh, I guess he's talking about gambling. Oh, he's talking about some bread. Oh, I'll do that. I thought you meant like sports investing, like I'm investing in like a sports company or something. I'm like, I don't got that kind of bread. Yeah, no, I'll put some. I'm not a big sports gambler. I want to make that very clear. I'm not, and that's why sometimes it's like tricky because because of sports gambling kind of being out in the open now, and it's a part of our lives. If you're working the media business way more than it ever was, it always was in the back of our minds and talking about this stuff, but now it's a lot more front forward, and we can talk about the ethics of that. But it's just a reality. But because I never really have been in sports gambling, I'm not still like that invested in sports gambling. Sometimes talking about it from that standpoint can be a little bit like something I'm still learning, to be honest, because it's not something, again, I like my money. I don't like losing money. And as the saying goes, the house always wins. So with Vegas, I know that they find a way to usually come out more than even in the end. So I'm not running usually to like sports bet. I usually do like the way I sports bet is typically like almost like celebratory. So like, oh, week 1, I'll do a couple of parlays to celebrate the NFL season coming back. I'll definitely probably throw down something for the Super Bowl. I didn't bet the college football playoff because I was not betting while Miami was playing. I already was panicking up. I'm not going to be betting and putting that kind of karma on the games. I did think about, man, should I just put a big bet on Miami to win the national championship once they were going to play Indiana? And they were heavy underdogs. But I don't want that energy even a part of this. This is super pure for me. I don't need now the fact that I may lose $50 or whatever on this bet that my team's going to win the national championship. I don't want that. So I usually don't do that. But yeah, $10. I'll bet $10 every now and then. That's something I'll do. But no, I'm not investing in a sports company or sports broadcast or something like that. But yeah, no, I'll throw some cash in the game. But he's saying, I like the Broncos to win the first half. I think Sean Payton will dial up a few trick plays. I don't know if you were listening, Bob. I didn't start to talk about the first half, but that's exactly what I said about the trick plays. So, Bob, me sharing the brain here, I think that Sean Payton knows that in order to win this game, he's going to have to steal some points or steal some big plays. He's not going to be able to just say, all right, we're going to line up 11 on 11, and our 11 is going to be better than their 11. We're going to just move the ball up and down the field. Will they have some plays? Will they do some things? And they will, I think they won't be a zero offensively the whole game. I think Jackson's good enough at least to give them some presence of being able to move the ball a little bit. But I think he knows that we're not going to just line up and score 30 points on this team. A, they have a great defense, and B, even if they didn't have a great defense, we're compromised because we don't have our starting quarterback, and their offense already has been a little hit or miss this year. They've gone cold for long stretches. They went cold for a long stretch in this last game they just won, and that was with Bo Nix. So I can't imagine what's going to happen with their backup. I would have to assume that their offense operates better with Bo Nix than it does Jarrett Stidham. I don't think this is going to be a Nick Foles situation where he comes in and the Eagles' offense looks just as explosive, if not more explosive, Nick Foles than it did with Carson Wentz, who's playing at an MVP level. I don't think that's going to happen. So, yeah, I totally agree. Sean Payton, I think, is going to have to dial up some trick plays. I think he fully will. And I think they're going to hit at least one or two, which is why I think this game will still be close. I think this is going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a good game. I'm leaning Patriots. I had the Patriots winning. I said I score 6, somewhere around there, 23-17 is kind of score I'm looking at. But, yeah, I expect Sean Payton to be aggressive with not necessarily play calling, but I think with trick plays, and I think maybe some shots early in the game to say, hey, listen, we need to steal a touchdown. We're not going to be able to say, hey, we're going to put together 4 or 5, 12, 13 play drives where we're just running the ball down their throat. We're just picking up third downs left and right. They can't win that way. But they can win if they can get a flea flicker for a touchdown, if they can run a reverse for a big play, if they can run maybe a trick play on even a punt or kick return, which I actually saw in the last national championship game. There was a weird play. I think Miami scored on the drive anyway, so it didn't matter. But there was a play that you may remember in the national championship game in the fourth quarter when Malachi Toney had fielded a punt inside his own 5-yard line, and it didn't seem like it seemed like a dumb strategy. It just seemed like, why would you do that? You can't field the ball that deep into your own territory, especially when you're down, especially when you're trying to come back in the game. But then the all 22 view, the wide view of the play actually showed that it looked like it was a trick play for Miami where Toney was supposed to catch the ball and then throw it all the way to the other side of the field where there was a Miami player standing there, and there was nobody in the end of there. It would have been even for 90 yards, it would have been a walk-in touchdown because nobody covered the guy. So Toney caught it, maybe trying to think maybe I can still make this throw, but the players were all over him. It would have been a dangerous play. Especially because you're throwing the ball backwards and you're near your end zone. Maybe you throw it back for a safety. There's a lot of concerns there. So I'm glad he didn't throw it. But, it was a great punt to pin him back there. But that was the plan there. I wouldn't be surprised. These coaches, they watch college football. They watch other games too. Maybe don't be surprised if Sean Payton saw that and said, oh, that's a nice little wrinkle Miami put in there. It didn't work because of, the circumstance. But maybe we can catch New England napping on special teams, and maybe we do something like that. I would be, if I'm Mike Vrabel, man, and 10 has got to be up on an absolute 10 for trick plays and for weird things to happen in this game. Because Sean Payton, he likes to play in that game already. He might have been ready to use those anyway, even if Bo Nix was playing. Now that he's not playing, I guarantee you will see 1 or 2 trick plays, I believe, in this game. Totally agree with that. And then Bob making fun of me saying, a sports wager for $10. Yes, I know. Yeah, now I get it. Yeah, you said investment. Investment is not what I think of when I think of wager or betting. Investment, I think of here's $50,000. Go turn your sports company into a brand, and I can get some money on the back end. That's what I think of when I see investment. That's why when I said investment, I'm like, no, I don't invest in money. Do I gamble sometimes? Yes, I do gamble. Do I gamble a lot? No, I cannot say I gamble a lot. If I did, I'm not married yet, though I will be married later this summer. I would probably be getting a divorce. And I can take the probably out of it because my fiance has been very adamant about if you gamble away our money, you will be out of here. So it's not, don't expect to see your boy EJ just at the craps table or playing blackjack in Vegas left and right and just dropping $500 on teams to win. You know, there's no uncut gem story with me. That's never gonna happen. I'm not that. I don't want to do that. I'm not. I don't have that inclination. I personally like the. For a long time, I just didn't understand any of the appeal of sports gambling to me, and maybe that's the purity of just being a young kid, and maybe just being like a person who also like was not some all-star athlete, but like was an athlete and played sports. So I actually really was invested in just like wanting to see who's gonna win and lose and who was better. Like I just that alone is like what drives me and what is interesting to me about sports. So even as a young person, like sports gambling, I never got it because I was like, I just want to be right. I just want to be able to tell my friends, I told you that the Giants were gonna win that game, or I told you that the Knicks were gonna win that game, or left and right, or I just want to see the best athletes perform and just see how they do. Like I really, again, there was a lot of naivety for me in terms of like the appeal of sports gambling and how much sports gambling is impacting our, regular sports lives. We're seeing it now with all these investigations into point shaving in college basketball and the NBA and the manipulating over unders. Like these are all things that, again, would have been very, like, for me, very naive. I didn't think that this was something that was going to be so pervasive and such a big factor, because that's just not. I don't come from families that gambled on sports at all, really. So again, like it just wasn't part of my lexicon. I know people did it. I know people talked about it. But I was like, oh, those are those degenerates that just get into that thing. Nobody really cares about that. And I'm like, oh no, everybody cares about that. So it's been an eye-opening. It's been eye-opening for me the last like 5 years or so with how much, again, sports gambling probably more legalized and people being able to talk about it. And now it's being marketed to us on an incessant level. Like these are all new things for me. So I'm learning a lot when it comes to that. But yeah, no, Marquito, I think, is laughing at me when I told you that I'm not married yet, but I get a divorce if Andrea found me dropping $500 on a Knicks championship. Yeah, Andrea almost wanted to get rid of me when she learned I dropped $600 on a Knicks jacket. If she learned I dropped $500 or $600 on a Knicks win, especially knowing how much they disappoint me, she might throw me out of this window that's right next to me right here. That would not be a good idea. That would not be smart for me. So no, I'm not about that. I will, again, throw down some $50. I'll throw down a $10 bet, $20 bet. I'll throw down some bets for the Super Bowl because that's, again, celebratory. The first bet I won is ironic. This is a fun story. It's great, and we had a lot of time here. I'll be able to get to LeBron in a second. I didn't prepare a ton today this morning because not a lot happened overnight. So it's kind of good that we've got these like ancillary stories that come up. I kind of want to tell more of these stories as we get to 40 days to 40 days. So I want you guys also to. That's part of the reason why I like talking hip hop, like talking, video games and other. So you guys also get to know more about me beyond just if you're listening to me on the fan, where like you get to know a lot about me too there because I'm hosting my solo show and I'll be on this weekend midnight to 5 on the overnight Saturday into Sunday. So if you want to watch me again, listen to me again, check me out on the fan this weekend. But I have a job to do. I'm there to talk New York sports, and I got to have Jerry from Syasa yell at me about why I'm wrong about the Giants or wrong about the Yankees, and I gotta serve that audience, and I take great pride in serving that audience, and because I love talking New York sports. But it doesn't give you a lot of wiggle room to talk about other random things. So yeah, I've enjoyed the fact that we've been able to kind of go on this tangent. But I'm trying to remember what my story was. But my story was right. My first bet. The first bet I ever won. And I actually was at the fan when it happened. It was the All-Star weekend. You're like, what? Yes. I was a lunatic. I was the kind of lunatic that shows you how naive I am about this whole thing. But I'm the kind of weirdo that was like, I'm going to do a first bet. Let's do All-Star weekend. It's like, what? Why are you betting All-Star weekend? I did bet All-Star weekend. And it was probably, so it's my first one. It was first year at the fan. So this had to be 2023. Makes sense, I guess. If I arrived in 2022, yeah, 2023. So All-Star weekend 2023. I'm working at the fan. I'm doing overnight tape operating. And you've probably heard, if you watch Maggie and Perloff or listen to Maggie and Perloff, or if you listen to the fan, you've heard about, somebody out there doing tape. Just a small detail. When you're doing tape, essentially it is you gathering all the sound from the games and the press conferences and the highlights. That's essentially what that was. So I'm doing a late night, doing tape. It's All-Star weekend. So there's not a lot going on. This is like past Super Bowl. Baseball hasn't started yet. So it's actually a great time to be working because you're not really doing much. So it's the 3-point contest. And Karl-Anthony Towns, of all people, had like the lowest odds by far to win. I don't know what he was, but he was something crazy. Like I'm very not familiar with these like odds, but let's say he was like plus 800 or something like that. It was something like that. And I was like, Carney Towns is having a great year shooting the basketball. And he's talking about how he's motivated, that he's the best big man shooter ever. Why don't I just throw $20 to Carney Towns and see what happens? Not thinking he'd ever be a Knick, not realizing how idiotic it probably is to be betting on a 3-point contest. But I bet a decent amount, probably about $20, on Carney Towns to win the 3-point contest in 2023. And he did win. And I won. I was like, oh my God, I won. I was like, oh, I won whatever, $60, whatever I won on Carney Towns winning a 3-point contest. That was my first bet. You know, most people, they're going to bet on sports. You know, their first bet now, they're betting, you know, they'll do maybe a futures bet, like, oh, the Mets are going to win the championship. Or they're betting, oh, I want to bet the Super Bowl. I want to bet the spread. You know, most people probably, their initial thing is doing something like the numbers, like the, you know, the boxes or Super Bowl. That's usually like your entryway in. But if you're doing an actual bet for your first time, typically it's something like that. It is not going to be, I'm betting on the All-Star game. That shows you just how weird my mind is and how much I don't know anything about this world. And didn't at that time, and still I'm learning a lot. But yeah, the first bet I ever won, ever, in any kind of sports gambling thing was betting Carney Towns to win the 3-point contest. And then it's funny because my brothers, they also aren't like, they're not betting crazy as well, but they do bet sometimes. So I ran to them. I was like, "Oh my God, I won! Like, you know, I won, you know, X amount of money on Carney Towns winning a title, winning the 3-point contest." They were like, "Well, did you bet Obi Toppin to win the dunk contest since he's a Knick?" And I was like, "No." Like, why wouldn't you use that money you won to bet on Obi Toppin since he's your guy and you know what he can do? Like, you could have came away today with $300. And I was like, I wasn't thinking about that. I was just happy I got the one. I only betted the one, and I was happy I got the one. So you know, my brothers would give me a hard time. Like, wait, if you betted. Ironically, again, Carney Towns became a Knick. He's like, you betted, of all the things you could have bet tonight, you bet Carney Towns, who you have no affiliation to, who you actually don't really like that much. You bet on him to win the 3-point contest. So you got all this bread that nobody thought you would have won because nobody was betting Carl. And you didn't use at least some of that money or all that money. Then they say, okay, go and then bet on like something else in it, like because the dunk contest seemed like it was going to be a foregone conclusion given the guys out there that Obi was going to win. He seemed to be the runaway favorite. And I was like, no, didn't think about that. That's a little story time there for me. Again, this is EJ Stewart. You're listening and watching 40 Days and 40 Nights. Let's again wrap the show like I planned to wrap the show talking about the King. So, LeBron James, and you're going to hear from LeBron in a second. Obviously, not in an interview. I didn't talk to LeBron James. But this was him after the game last night. So, they played the Clippers. I watched a lot of this game. The Lakers didn't look very inspired. They look like a team that it's starting to kind of go through the ringer. They were saying it a lot. I thought Dwayne Wade was good on the broadcast yesterday. They did make a furious comeback and make the game interesting, but you know, Dwayne Wade said on the broadcast, this looks like a team that's kind of going through the ringer a little bit. They're playing the Clippers, who are playing really good ball. I added the Clippers as one of my sleeper teams this year, and they could not have started any worse. But they've actually played pretty well of late. I think this is now. I want to say they've won now 9 out of 10 at home in their last 10 games. They're hot. They're now only 4 games below 500. I think they're trending back towards a team that maybe could at least get into the play-in, and I think they will be a dangerous out potentially if they get there. They had a lot of internal strife with the Chris Paul and Jeff Van Gundy situation. Chris Paul's gone. The team was playing miserably, but now things start to be righting for them. But this is more about the Lakers, who, again, I thought didn't look all that inspired. They didn't look very focused at all defensively. Their defense in the first half, it was abysmal. It was like they were not connected. They didn't seem to have a plan. They just didn't look good at all. Luka looked good. Everyone else seemed like they were on another planet. And Dwayne Wade said he felt like there was a team that just like the reports, not just with LeBron, but like, you know, the JJ Redick stuff. It's just there's a lot going on. And then Rich Paul and the podcast and he's doing and saying this guy should be traded and that guy should be traded. It's just, he didn't like name these things, but these are things he's talking about. He says it's like, because they said, you know, he said it's a lot going on with the Lakers right now. And then I believe it was Noah Eagle who was like, you talking about the report by ESPN. He was like, and the report before that, and the report before that, and the report before that. It was a great line from Dwayne Wade because he was right. Like the Lakers, it's like not just one thing with him. It seems like it's been a couple of things for them. For a team that's, also still not doing that bad. Like they're 26-17. They've had some rough patches, but it's not like you would think the Lakers are at 500, or you would think the Lakers are where the Clippers are, given like how so much negativity has been around the team this year. When actually they've still had a pretty good year, but they didn't perform well last night in the first half. They tried to make it a game in the second half, and they did, but it wasn't enough to come back. So they lose to the Clippers at home. Intuit Dome, by the way, looks super cool. That's one of the arenas. That is one of my bucket list. May be strong because bucket list involves dying, and like if I die and I don't see Intuit Dome, that's fine. But like I do think like I love going to other cities, seeing other arenas. One of the things that I've really enjoyed as an adult has been the ability, because I have my own money. Maybe not at this very moment because I don't have a job, but typically I've been able to have my own money, is that I've been able to travel. And one of the things I've always wanted to do, because I didn't really get to do it as a kid, was I've always wanted to go to other road arenas and road stadiums, places I've never been to, places I've only seen on television. Just get the vibes, just to see what they're like and go to a game. And my first solo trip I ever went to was to Los Angeles to ironically watch the Clippers versus the Warriors. I wanted to go to Staples Center, and I had a blast. And so I say that to say that there are plenty of bucket list stadiums I have. I mentioned I want to go to the Rose Bowl, not to see UCLA, but to actually go to the actual Rose Bowl, to the game, to see a game in the Rose Bowl. I want to go to the Cotton Bowl to see Texas versus Oklahoma. What are some other ones? I want to go to Wrigley Field. These are the bucket list places. I want to go to Wrigley Field. Wrigley Field, I heard, is phenomenal and incredible, and I definitely want to go there. Those are probably the main ones. Those are the main three. There really aren't too many other. Oh, I want to go to. It's kind of a weird one because I do want to go to SoFi Stadium. SoFi Stadium looks bomb. I also love LA, so it's a little, it's a little bit of a biased thing to LA, but I do love LA, so I would love to go to SoFi Stadium to see a football game, whether it be, ironically, UCLA may not be playing there as well too, because there's a whole beef with the Rose Bowl. But to see the Rams or see a college football playoff game, something like that, I would love to go to SoFi. I've been to Allegiant, not to see a game, but I've been in the stadium, so I've gotten Allegiant done. What are some other bucket list stadiums? And by the way, you're in the comments. I want to know your bucket list stadiums. We can get that going maybe before we get out of here. Bucket list stadiums. Those are probably the main ones. Because the baseball ones, I've gotten a lot of. I got to go to Fenway. I got to go to Petco Park, which was a big one for me because I love San Diego, and I think it's a cool park. So I've always wanted to go. So I've been, now because of my my relationship with my fiance who loves to travel, I've actually been able to get to quite a bit that I never would have thought I would have been able to go to. So, but Intuit Dome is now one of the newer ones I like. It looks really cool on television. Obviously, the wall of the fans, this crazy wall where apparently they can smoke weed up there at the top, looks like a pretty wild scene. So Intuit Dome looks dope. I actually wanted to go last year, but wasn't able to go because of some scheduling things. Gonzaga was playing a game there, so I wanted to see Gonzaga play there. Oh, and I want to go to the Kennel. I want to go see Gonzaga play a home game in Spokane. So those are my bucket list ones for sure. Intuit Dome, like right below bucket list, but one I want to go to. So they're playing this game last night. They lose. And the questions obviously surround LeBron James, who was not the subject of this Baxter Holmes article that was really detailed and really fascinating and really outlined just the cutthroatness of what the Laker ownership situation has been with the Buss family. Now that obviously Dr. Jerry Buss has been gone and Jeanie Buss and her maneuvering to become the owner of the team, and just how cutthroat it's been to get her, at one point, her older brothers out of their jobs with the Lakers and out of the situation, and then to get her younger brothers out of the situation so she could sell the team and still become the owner and still get away with about $900 to $1 billion from the deal. Crazy stuff. But even from a basketball standpoint, because the Buss family is iconic and we care a ton about the Laker organization, and it's just always going to be an interesting place. Even from that standpoint, it is interesting. But from a basketball standpoint, I think the most interesting part for basketball people who maybe don't care about the Game of Thrones politics happening within the Laker front office and ownership is this apparently strained relationship that she has had with LeBron James. LeBron James obviously joined the Lakers after his last stint with the Cavaliers. He signed the contract, and apparently Jeanie Buss had various different issues with him and how he's handled himself as a Los Angeles Laker. She did not like that he was being positioned as this quote-unquote savior of the Los Angeles Lakers, that he was dropping in to bestow his presence on the Lakers, and it was not being spun that the Lakers had did a great job to woo someone like LeBron James to LA and to Los Angeles. It was being flipped the other way. Like how noble of LeBron James to bestow his presence on the Los Angeles Lakers. She didn't like that. She did not like the impact that Clutch Sports seemed to have over the organization, over the team, and over the league, and how much that they meddled in things that involved the Lakers. She didn't like how much he didn't feel she was appreciative of the Lakers drafting Bronny James, even though Bronny James is quite clearly not good enough to be in the NBA. She apparently, again, was so frustrated by LeBron and his lack of gratitude and just, again, how much power he seemed to try to wield over the organization. And also, by the way, skirt accountability when accountability came his way, like with Russell Westbrook, where they get Russell Westbrook. It's a terrible disaster. It goes horribly. And it's widely reported that LeBron James was very instrumental in pushing the Lakers to get Russell Westbrook. After it started going terribly, what you started hearing from LeBron James is, that's front office stuff. I have nothing to say about front office. I don't make those decisions. That's all Jeanie Buss and Rob Pelinka in the front office. I had nothing to do with Russell Westbrook becoming LA Laker. When I don't know what's true and what's not true, but all the reporting at the time, while it was happening, while it was a disaster, was that LeBron James wanted this guy. I don't know why people would lie prior to, and I'm saying before Russell Westbrook even got there. Why the reporter, they have no reason to lie and say, oh, like, they're not saying, oh, after it failed, hey, LeBron James wanted Russell Westbrook, they're pinning it on him. They were saying before Russell Westbrook, before we knew it was going to be a complete disaster, they were saying LeBron James wants this guy. So they denied it, and he's denied accountability, and that also PO'd Jeanie Buss. So a lot of details about their now strained relationship. She apparently at one point was considering not offering him a contract extension for 2022 and considered trading him to the Clippers, ironically, the team we were just talking about. So a lot going on there. So what does LeBron think about it? Because we're all fascinated by what LeBron has to say. Here was LeBron talking about the report. He's initially brushing it off.
Quite frankly, I don't really get involved in that or the reports or whatever the case may be. I've seen a lot of it, obviously, but I don't really care about the reports, to be honest. You guys know me. You guys know since I've been here in my 8th year here, been in this league 23 years. There's going to be another article tomorrow, especially involving me.
So he's like, I don't know what's going on. Or he said he knows what's going on. He said, but he kind of brushes it off. He said, I don't really care about that kind of stuff. I don't care about reports. So here's more on LeBron, because he's kind of asked, because again, this conversation about him, being the savior of the Lakers and this idea that he kind of was not gracious being a Laker. Here is LeBron talking about what his goal was when he joined LA.
At the end of the day, when I came to this organization, my whole mindset was about restoring, excellence, and the things that I've seen growing up, with the Lakers. Obviously, I didn't get an opportunity to watch the Showtime, but I know the history, and then in the early 2000s with Shaq and Kobe, and then what Kobe did, and, those couple runs with him and Powell. So, my whole mindset was like, how can I get, that feeling back to the Lakers organization, and where, when the Lakers and the Knicks and the Bulls and, the Celtics are good is great, so, and I was able to do that along with, our 14, 16 other guys winning a championship.
I want to pause on that real quick. I think that comment is part of why LeBron will never really be beloved by Laker Nation. Why I think there is some of this friction with Jeanie Buss. I think that comment right there. And I'm not even here to say that LeBron shouldn't feel like he has restored. What's the word he said? Excellence, right? I'll play that one more time. Just to begin.
At the end of the day, when I came to this organization, my whole mindset was about restoring, excellence, and
I gotta be real. LeBron has not restored excellence to the Lakers. They won one championship, and that was great. And I am not someone who poo-poos the bubble title. I know other people do, and I think actually it sounds like most people do at this point in time, which. It's just bad luck. I kind of feel bad for LeBron and feel bad for that Laker team that like so many people don't respect the bubble championship. I don't know how Laker fans feel about it. I've never gotten a good feel whether or not they treat it as if, when Kobe and Shaq won in 2000 or when Magic won in '80. I don't know if it's treated the same. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I feel like at the time they were still bragging like they won a championship. I can't tell you today if they now look back on it and say, "Oh, that actually wasn't that real." I have no idea. But LeBron, from the Lakers standard, you cannot say you restored greatness and excellence to this organization, because the standard of excellence for the Lakers is just much different than the standard of excellence for the Miami Heat and the standard of excellence for the Cleveland Cavaliers. For Cleveland, winning one championship is just like you've done God's work. Okay, it's a totally different game. For the Miami Heat, winning multiple championships, going back to back, yes, that's restoring excellence to a program that has never won back-to-back titles, has won championships but never won back-to-back titles. The Los Angeles Lakers have 17 world titles. The Los Angeles Lakers during the 80s, when they were with Magic, he's talking about Magic and Kareem and those guys, they went to the finals in 8 years in a 10-year stretch. 8 years in a 10-year stretch. I'm looking at their record between 1980 and 1990. Only 3 of those years, let me see. Let me hold up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of those years, between 1980 and 1990, they won at least 60 games. In that stretch, they never won less than 54. Laker excellence, and then you want to talk about Kobe Shaq era, we can go to Kobe Shaq era. You want to talk about starting at 2000, when again, these years that he's talking about, from 2000 to 2004, the Kobe and Shaq prime, again, 3 championships. They never won less than 50 games. And besides that 50-win season, that kind of aberration, where there was a lot of strife, I think that might have been I don't know if that was Colorado. I don't remember if that was Kobe's Colorado situation, but the rape allegation, of course. But I'm looking at 67 wins, 56 wins, 58 wins in a 50-win season, and a 56 season before Shaq left. That's Laker excellence. That's, we're competing for a championship every year. We're dominating the Western Conference. We are the standard of excellence in the NBA. I think sometimes this is like the problem with LeBron James, is that like for a guy who's as great as he is, he sometimes also seeks like participation trophy type energy, because LeBron arrived, I believe in 2019 was the right year, right? That was Luke Walton's last year, so I'm pretty sure, that was the year that he arrived in LA. He arrives in 2019. I don't think you could say, given what the Lakers have been since he arrived in 2019, that he's established, what do you say, a standard of excellence with the Lakers? Given this the Lakers? In this stretch, since you've been a Laker, LeBron, you've only won 50 games twice. I just showed you a stretch where they went in a 10-year stretch where they won 60 games 5 times. And the lowest number they had was 54. You've never won 54 games in the season. Now, you did have a lockout, COVID season. So, in 2020, okay, let's say you do get to, they weren't going to get to 60, but let's say you would have got to, that was a 52 plus 19, that's 71 games. It's realistic to say you probably would have won 56, 50, at most 57 games. Okay, that looks like a Laker year. Besides that, where is the standard of excellence that LeBron is talking about? And then the next year, it was also a shortened season, 42-30, but that wouldn't have been a 50-win season because you already lost 30 games. So where is the standard of excellence that LeBron is really referring to, besides that 1 year, and that 1 year is in the bubble, and a lot of people don't respect the bubble? So we talk about, again, lack of gratitude, lack of all this other stuff. I think when LeBron says, "Well, I've restored this organization to a standard of excellence," Laker fans are like, where? We missed the playoffs a bunch of times with you. We've got knocked out in the first round 3 times with you. Yeah, we won 1 title, but then the one time we went to the conference finals, we didn't win a game. So what is the standard of excellence that you are referring to, LeBron James? It is not our standard of excellence. You did not restore the impact that the Laker organization had when Kobe and Shaq were running together, or when Magic and Bird were running together. That is not at all what we are seeing from you. So what are you talking about? So I wanted to pause in that soundbite, because I think that is going to continue to be some of the disconnect, I think, with LeBron James and the Laker community. But more for LeBron James here, saying that he doesn't really care what people think about him.
Quite frankly, I don't really care about articles. I really don't. I don't care about stories. I don't care about podcasts and all that type of shit. It don't bother me. I'm 41 years old and I watch golf every day. I don't care about an article. I don't care how somebody feel about me. If you know me personally, and then you know what I'm about. These guys know what I'm about, and that's all that matters.
Saying, "Oh, I watch golf every day." It's like, again, clearly you don't care because you want to talk about trying to endear yourself to your Laker fans and stuff who may feel like maybe Jeanie's had a point. And in many ways, I think a lot of Laker fans read this article and was like, "Yeah, that's how we felt." Good for Jeanie Buss to also feel like we're seeing what we've been seeing. Because I told you the other day, I have talked to Laker fans about that aspect of it. That there are a lot of Laker fans who do feel like LeBron has been entitled and do feel like LeBron has brought a lot of drama and unnecessary mess, and that there hasn't been enough winning to combine with that mess that he has brought to the Lakers. So there are a lot of people who feel that way. So there are a lot of people who read that article who were like, yeah, good for Jeanie Buss that she felt that way, whether she was right or wrong. And I get it. LeBron clearly doesn't care. I think to say, hey, listen, man, I don't care about this stuff. All I do is watch golf all day. It's like, all right, man, whatever. Again, you want to tell us how rich you are? I don't know. But LeBron there saying he doesn't care about that. He was asked, I think, an important question again about, like, did he think his relationship was good with Jeanie Buss? Here's what he had to say.
Well, Brown, from your perspective, how do you think your collaboration has been with Jeanie?
What do you mean, collaboration?
Just the partnership.
I thought it was good, but somebody could see it another way. So it's always two sides of the coin. So, like I said, at the end of the day, how I represented this franchise and what I wanted to do to represent this franchise, so when I got here till now, has been with the utmost respect and honor and dignity, and I would say loyalty. I mean, shit. I've played here longer than pretty much any other franchise I've played for besides Cleveland, and that was a 7 and a 4. So.
Again, if you have kids in the car, we're on YouTube, so I'm not going to be running to block out every curse. So there may be some curses. I'm not going to try playing anything super obscene, obviously. But so apologies if you have kids or whatever. You're hearing some curses from LeBron there. But again, it's kind of the same deal, right? He's like, I've been a respectful Laker. I've worked hard. I've done all these things that I think would be exemplary of being a Los Angeles Laker. Laker fans don't want to hear that. All they care about are you hoisting banners. And we're not talking about NBA Cup banners. We're talking about real NBA championship banners. That's all they care about. This whole thing, I'm treating everybody with respect. I'm being a model, front-facing athlete for the Lakers in a way that could be respectful. It's good. And it's good that he has done that, because I think he has. That stuff don't matter to Laker fans. So he's never going to win over that crowd with that. And the fact that he runs to that, I think, speaks to, again, this disconnect that he probably still has with this community, which is why I keep saying, I keep going back to that Pusha T line. He reminds me of Pusha T talking about Lil Wayne on Infrared. Flash without the fire. Another multi-platinum rapper trapped and can't retire. People get exposed. They say they see the traps and I'm the liar. LeBron feels like, even listen to him. He sounds like defeated, uninterested, like he doesn't really care. Cause I think he is kind of just tired of this thing, but he can't freaking retire. He's too good, so he feels like, well, there's still something I could get out of this if I could maybe win a championship. Because I don't care what he says, I do believe that being considered the greatest of all time is something that's important to him. It 100% is. He would not be playing if it wasn't. And the only thing he has on Jordan is longevity. And the fact that he is so good still makes him feel like, well, if I keep playing and the Lakers do the right things, maybe I can sneak out a championship on the way out to bolster my case. I really believe that's what this is. But it's not going to happen. I think he knows deep down it's not going to happen. But I think he also knows deep down that he's got to keep being in LA. He can't go to another team because that would then ruin kind of all the things LeBron still cares about. Like, I watch golf every day. He probably gets to golf a lot because he's in LA, so the weather is good. Like, being in Hollywood, his business interests, all those things. He can't afford to go back to Cleveland for a year or 2 years. Like, he can't afford to do all that. He can't afford to position himself to be an NBA owner and leave one of the biggest sports markets and media markets in the world. He can't afford to do that. So it's flash without the fire. Another multi-platinum rapper trapped and can't retire. That's what LeBron is. He's a multi-MVP superstar athlete who cannot retire. And I think that's what you're hearing in some of these sound bites. So when he says, I thought my relationship was good. I thought my standing was good. I've been a good front-facing leader. I've been a person who has treated the Laker legacy with respect. What more do you want? You haven't won enough. That's what they want. They wanted to win more. They wanted to win championships. They wanted to be in a position where they could look at themselves and say, yes, we are back. We are now the dominant organization in this league yet again. You didn't bring that to them. You brought them 1 year and a bubble title, and that's it. That's never going to be enough for the Laker organization. That's never going to be enough for the Laker fans. And that's why you're sitting here befuddled being like, I don't know, I thought my relationship was good with Jeanie Buss. You've caused a lot of issues for them and been probably a pain in the butt for them just because you're a star athlete and because you're an icon. And you have not given them the winning to then combat that. You haven't given them the winning to even that out. So now, yeah, they're sitting here being like, you were annoying. You were annoying. We put up with all this stuff. You've taken all the credit for everything. And what do we have to show for it? One bubble title. That is, I think, where the disconnect lies. Last thing here on LeBron James, and he was asked about, has he spoken to Jeanie Buss? He got really defensive on this one.
Have you guys talked since that came out, like clearing the air, or is that something?
We never talk. I don't understand. Like, it's not like me and Jeanie be on the phone talking. You guys ain't never heard a report about that. Don't make something out of it that is not. It's always been mutual. It's always been respect. It's always been a great partnership. But it's not like I call Jeanie on the phone. It's not like I call Mickey Harrison on the phone or Dan Gilbert on the phone. Like, come on, guys, don't make this more than what it is. I don't care.
Sounds like you do. I mean, the fact that what I feel like was a very benign question, which is, have you talked to Jeanie Buss since the report came out? Which is not. That's not like he tried to spin it like, oh, you're trying to get a gotcha or trying to spin this into something that it's not. When no, it is exactly what it is. It's an article that came out that said the owner of your team hates your ass and wanted to trade you and has been sick and tired of you. Whether it's true or not, things we'll never know for sure. But it's something that is what it is. It's fine. I think we can. It's okay to ask the question. And then he's like, "Oh God, don't do this, guys. I didn't call Dan Gilbert. I didn't call Mickey Harrison." Okay, no, but we're not. Mickey Harrison didn't. Our article didn't come out with Mickey Harrison saying that he hates LeBron James. And in fact, when you had your beef with Dan Gilbert and you left Cleveland, and he wrote that terrible letter about how you're a pompous king and a fake king, and we're gonna win a title before he does, and all that stuff. Like when you came back, we did ask you about what is your relationship with Dan Gilbert. How did that work out? Did you guys figure it out? Did you guys talk? We asked you those questions because they were appropriate. It's appropriate to ask LeBron, did you talk to the team owner after we heard this report that the team owner can't stand you? When you're, again, this superstar person that's been honorable, that's been faithful, that has been loyal, that has played with this team for this long amount of time. Again, I go back to the point. LeBron thinks longevity and just being kind of good is what is that it is a story of his basketball life. Is what he's framed everything around. So he runs to, I've been here almost as long as I've been in Cleveland. And I've been a great player during that time. So that should mean a lot. Just like he could say, I only won 4 titles, but I've had the most points. And I've played a long time. And nobody's been as good as me at this age. That should mean a lot. It's all in the same stew. But it's not a ridiculous question to ask. Did your owner talk to you after there was an article saying that the owner can't stand you? It's not. And to say, well, I didn't talk to Dan Gilbert or what's the name? Or Mickey Harrison, that has nothing to do with the conversation we're talking about. That's deflecting. If those guys blew you up, right, just like when they did, Dan Gilbert did, and we asked you about it, and you talked about it, and you said whatever you had to say about it. If that happened, we would have asked you, did you talk to Mickey Harrison? And the answer wouldn't have been, I never talked to Dan Gilbert. That would have been stupid. No, we're asking you this because something happened. And you would think, given that Jeanie Buss had this firm denial, and that this wasn't true, and that this was unfair to LeBron James, that this was being painted this way, it's not unreasonable to think maybe Jeanie Buss picked up the phone. It's not that, we think that you and Jeanie have this long-standing conversation. We guys talk left and right and all the time. I don't know. We have no idea what your relationship is. It's not like we're jumping to some kind of conclusion that she didn't talk to you, and that means something. We don't know, but the fact that she made a public statement but didn't pick up the phone, it's just something to know. What people make of it is whatever they make of it. But the fact that he's like running to be like, you guys are trying to get me to gotcha, you guys are being bad journalists, like the fact that he's running to that just tells me that this is a sore spot for him. Because again, it's something he has dealt with since he's been there. It's not something that the national media or the national conversation or people who are not involved with Lakerland and Laker fans, they don't understand. Just like people didn't understand why Steeler fans wanted Mike Tomlin gone, right? Like, if you're not in it, you don't get it. I'm telling you, I talked to Laker fans. I've watched Laker fans react about this team. I've heard the conversations. The way LeBron James feels like he should be viewed, the way he likes to position himself, like he is Shaq, like he is Kobe, like he is Magic Johnson, like he is Kareem, which is why he brings up those guys and says the one that push on that legacy. He will never be looked like those guys. For him, he's like, why? I won one title. One title should be good, right? No. One title with the Lakers? No, it's not good enough. Great enough, good enough in Cleveland. You'll get a statue out there. You're a god in Ohio, and you should be. You won 2 titles in Miami. You should get a statue in Miami. I don't know if they will, because Pat Riley's, can be a little petty, but you were an amazing player, and winning 2 titles, that was incredible. It's different with the Lakers, man. It's different with the Lakers. And what is excellent there is not what you've provided. What you've provided has been good. They've had some good moments, but it's not been the same. So interesting comments, man, from LeBron James. I'll be fascinated to see what ends up happening with the Laker situation with LeBron James. I'll get back into the comment section real quick. Again, Bob Custer. Shout out to Bob Nevada. He's been definitely riding for me in the chat. Appreciate you, as always. Here's one thing he put up there. EJ question. What do the LA beat writers say about LeBron's heavy influence on the Laker roster moves? Newspaper beat writers are usually super tight with the inside scoop. I mean, from what I've seen is that they again, talk about the Russell Westbrook thing and other moves that they've made. They have made it a point that, yes, LeBron has put his thumb on the scale on various different notions. And we've seen LeBron make public comments about how, hey, I don't think we're going to win a title. I don't know if we're good enough to do this, good enough to do that. Like, we've seen LeBron. We've seen it. We've seen him do it. That's why there's a level of gaslighting I think that annoys Laker fans, because it's like we've seen you do this in 4K and then you pretend like you don't do it. So, he's definitely had some influence. That influence, I think, clearly, obviously influenced them getting Anthony Davis. That's the biggest one. And that one was a good one. It's probably another reason why LeBron feels like he doesn't get enough respect, because he's the reason why Anthony Davis ended up being a Los Angeles Laker. And they ended up winning a title because they got Anthony Davis. So he's definitely had a bigger influence. He does not have a big influence now, because I don't think he wanted Luka Doncic. I think that's been very clear. Not that he's against it, but they did that move totally independent of LeBron James. Totally independent. And then here's Bob as well. EJ, the excellence comment LeBron made reminds me of the old LA Raider billboards that were all thrown all over town, even in Orange County, in the OC, in the billboards, commitment to excellence. Yeah, that's the Laker. That's the slogan for the Raiders, the commitment to excellence. LeBron's a football fan, so maybe he had that in his head for what he was trying to describe. So I think that definitely was something that he was thinking about when he said that. And it says here, EJ, but MJ's game, what wasn't MJ's game, it was all gone before. It was all gone well before LeBron's current age, wasn't it? Yeah, I mean, that's the. So wait, I'm trying to make sure it says. Wasn't MJ's game, it was all gone well before LeBron's current age. Yeah, I mean, Mike was long gone by the time, LeBron's 41? Like, Mike was long gone. We saw Mike playing at age 38, 39, and 40. It did not look as good as LeBron James. It didn't. He was pretty good. People make it sound like when he was on the Wizards, he was like a bum. That's not the truth. That's not the case at all. He wasn't a superstar. But, I mean, he scored I think he scored 50 points in the game. Or maybe at least 40. I know he definitely scored 40. He had some big games. The first season, I think he averaged 25 points. He was still really good. He just, was not nearly as athletic. He definitely was not as dominant and as consistent as LeBron James. But he was a good player. But no, LeBron, the whole thing with LeBron is his longevity argument. That he's going to say, I, at the end of the day, have played longer than pretty much anybody. And any of my peers who have tried to play this long have never looked this good. You want to talk about Kareem? You want to talk about Mike? You want to talk about Tim Duncan? You want to talk about any of the super old guys that tried to play for a long, long time? They never, at the end of the day, end up looking like me. That's always going to be his argument, which is why, again, he goes to I may not have the peak of excellence that is standard, that is long-lasting, but I do have a peak that lasted longer. That's why he can go and say, hey, I'm still good with the Lakers. Why is everybody mad at me? It's very fascinating, man. That's going to be the place to leave it, though. So I want to thank you guys for checking out this edition. I only had 3 topics kind of lined up today, but this ended up being a longer stream than I realized. We're pushing 2 hours. We're going to approach 2 hours here. of 40 Days and 40 Nights. This is day 10 of 40 Days and 40 Nights. Like every show, again, you can catch all of these streams live on YouTube at 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. So night 10 will wrap up week 2 of 40 Days and 40 Nights on YouTube. Again, 8 a.m., 6 p.m. YouTube New Generation Media is the YouTube channel. If you haven't already, like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on our videos, give us as much engagement as possible. We greatly appreciate that. Also, streaming live on X. Make sure you follow me on there, EJ_Stewart. Also streaming live on IG, Action EJ. And make sure you follow me on TikTok as well, Action EJ. Make sure you follow me there. Again, if you want to listen to the show, you want to listen to it back, or want to listen to older episodes that may be up, but you can't watch it from, you're on the move, you're driving, you're on a run, you're working out, whatever the case may be. All episodes of 40 Days and 40 Nights gets podcasted on our podcast channel. Just go to New Generation Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts. It's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and TuneIn, and Google Play. And of course, make sure you follow our social media accounts as well for New Generation Pod on X, New Generation Podcast on Instagram. That'll do it for this edition of 40 Days and 40 Nights. I'll see you all at 6 p.m. sharp. We'll see who can wrangle for guests. We'll see what other fun news comes down the pipe in the world of sports and pop culture. We'll talk about it all, man, but it's been a fun one. I'm EJ Stewart. I'll see you guys later.